When we think about our gut, it's pretty easy to just picture a simple tube for food. But it's so much more than that. It's actually this huge, intelligent, and really active barrier that's protecting our entire body. And the health of this barrier? Well, it's a hot topic for a very good reason. Okay, let's get into this. The lining of your gut has a massive surface area. I mean, if you could spread it all out flat, it would cover a studio apartment. That makes it our #1 interface with the outside world through everything we eat. And its job is absolutely crucial. Let all the good stuff in, like nutrients and water, but keep all the bad stuff out. Toxins, harmful microbes, you name it. It's an incredibly smart gatekeeper. And that's the big question, right? What happens when the rules at the security checkpoint get a little looser? When the barrier that's supposed to be so selective starts letting things through that it really shouldn't? This is where the whole conversation really starts. I'm sure you've heard the term leaky gut thrown around. It's everywhere, but it can be kind of confusing. So to really get what's going on, we need to separate that popular buzzword from the actual scientific concept, which is precise and measurable. Okay, this table really breaks down the confusion for us. First up, you've got leaky gut syndrome. You can see that science considers it a hypothetical condition, and it's not an official medical diagnosis. But then look at the second row, increased intestinal permeability, or IIP. Now, this is a real physiological state that scientists and doctors can actually measure and study. So from here on out, we're going to focus on the science of IIP. So what exactly is increased intestinal permeability? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. The gut's barrier becomes more porous, it loses some of that strict filtering power. And this means that things that are supposed to stay inside the gut, like bits of undigested food or bacterial toxins, can slip through into the bloodstream where they don't belong. So how does this even happen? It's actually fascinating. The strength of this entire barrier system relies on these tiny microscopic structures that seal the gaps between the cells lining your gut. They are the gatekeepers on a cellular level. A great way to think about it is to picture the cells in your gut lining as bricks in a wall. The tight junctions, they're like the dynamic little latches that hold all those bricks together. They aren't just static like mortar. They can actually tighten up to keep the wall secure or loosen up to control what gets through. And you can really see the difference here. On the left, those latches are tight. That's a healthy, secure barrier where just water and tiny nutrients get through. But on the right, you see what happens with increased permeability. The latches are looser, creating bigger gaps, and now larger, unwanted molecules can slip right through. And get this isn't just random damage happening. We now know there's a specific molecule that can actively tell these tight junctions to open up. That molecule is called zonulin. It's pretty much the only thing we know of that can regulate this process, like it holds the master key to all those cellular latches. All right, so the big question is, why does any of this matter? Who cares if the barrier is a little more porous? What are the real consequences when the gut security system isn't as tight? Well, this is where it gets really interesting for our overall health. When those larger molecules cross the barrier, they run right into our immune system. And about 70% of our body's entire immune system is located right there in the gut. So it sees these molecules as foreign invaders and launches an attack. This can create a constant low-level state of inflammation, not just in the gut, but throughout the body. And this quote from the research really hits the point home. This isn't just some local issue in your stomach. Once those immune cells in the gut get fired up, they can travel. They can actually migrate to other parts of the body and start causing problems far away from where it all started. So where does this all lead? Well, research has found a really strong association between increased intestinal permeability and a whole range of conditions. We're talking gut disorders like IBD and celiac, of course, but it also extends to autoimmune conditions, metabolic problems like obesity, and even chronic liver disease. Now, the key word is association. We know IIP is a factor, but figuring out if it's a cause or just a consequence is still a huge area of research. But check this out, this is a real game changer. In studies on type 1 diabetes, for example, scientists have actually measured increased intestinal permeability in people before they ever showed signs of the disease. This is a huge clue that a compromised barrier might not just be a symptom, it could be one of the very first steps that helps set the stage for the disease to develop later on. So what actually causes this to happen? It's almost never just one single thing. The science points to what's called a perfect storm model.
It usually starts with some kind of genetic predisposition. Some people are just more susceptible. Then you add in environmental triggers that challenge the gut over time. And finally, that cumulative effect leads to the barrier being compromised.
And what kind of triggers are we talking about? Well, a lot of them are just parts of modern life. Things like chronic stress, certain medications like NSAIDs or antibiotics, heavy alcohol use, and an imbalance in our gut bacteria that's called dysbiosis. And of course, modern diets that are super high in processed foods and don't have a lot of fiber can also play a major role.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. What's the biggest takeaway here? It's that even though leaky gut syndrome isn't an official diagnosis, that term points to a very real, very measurable biological process called increased intestinal permeability. And it's so important to remember that your gut barrier isn't just some passive wall. It is an active, dynamic, and incredibly intelligent system. It's constantly responding to your genes, your lifestyle, your stress levels, and your diet. It's always in communication with the rest of your body.
So now that you understand the science of intestinal permeability, you're so much better equipped to make sense of all the information out there about gut health. It gives you a real framework for understanding that what happens in your gut truly doesn't stay in your gut. It's a fundamental piece of our entire health puzzle. Just a reminder, this explainer is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice.